Hi, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to make a video about introducing this project, my restoration project, and explain what I'll be doing on the project, what kind of car it is, and what kind of restoration I'm going to kind of undertake on this car. But I wanted to go back a few steps and just talk about restoration itself. I know there'll be a lot of people watching who are beginners at car restoration. They've never tried it, and they're very interested to understand what does it take to do restoration. But also, they might be really struggling to choose what type of restoration to do. They might not understand the differences between some of the restoration types that they can undertake, and it might seem quite overwhelming for somebody who's never had a go before. So I thought it's absolutely worthwhile covering what a restoration is, what you can expect in a restoration, and try to answer some of those questions that you might have. I speak to lots and lots of people, and they know that this is my hobby, and I get a lot of common questions from people who are interested in restoration as a beginner. So yeah, I wanted just to cover, a lot of those basic items and answer questions for people. If you've got questions, please, put a question in the comments box, and I'll do my best to come back to you. And indeed, if you're watching this for the first time and you've not subscribed, please subscribe. It really helps get my video out to people, other people as well, that might not be as well informed or searching for the right things. It's just easier for them to find the video. So yeah, please please subscribe. It definitely helps. I'm very happy to answer questions in the comments. What I've realized kind of over the years is many different reasons why people are interested in car restoration. There's a lot of emotions go into making the decision to want to do car restoration, and they're always very personal. A restoration project, or the reason for doing restoration, is always personal, just to that individual, and there'll be different aspects at play in terms of why they want to do a restoration. Some people, I'll just cover some of those. Some people want to do a restoration because they want that challenge of taking something which is, let's say, broken, disused, maybe at the end of its life, ready to be scrapped, and they want to use and prove that they have those skills to be able to return that car back to a usable condition. They want to prove that they can make that car worthwhile again and give it purpose again. And in that, they will achieve and understand, they will achieve a result, a success for them to prove to themselves that they can do that. And they'll see the benefit of hands-on work that actually produces a hands-on, let's say, tangible thing that they can touch, that they can say that they've done. Really, in this world, it's extremely digital. Work, a lot of people's work can be office work, where they never touch a hand tool. They never get involved in something to do, related to either manufacturing or restoration. They just don't get the opportunity to do it. And so undertaking a restoration gives those people the opportunity to prove to themselves that they have those types of capabilities and receive the satisfaction and reward of seeing that item, that car, returned back to usable condition. So that's always one big motivating factor. You do see a lot of programs and TV programs, YouTube or other streaming content of programs where people want to take a car, like an old car, kind of do some light restoration and sell it for a profit. There's not very many people actually in the real world. I mean, that's all just, if you like, fake for TV. There's not very many people in the real world decide that I'm going to do that for a job. That just doesn't happen. I would say 95% of people, maybe even more, are people that have an emotional attachment to doing restoration, and they make up the vast majority of people choosing to do it. However, those programs can be useful to see what people do, and how they're doing something, how they're fixing something. It's useful to see what kind of skills or ideas they're using in order to fix the cars that they're working on. But of course, it's the TV production programs that really do all the work on them. So that's not really much of a factor, and I doubt there's very many people watching this that want to do that as a job particularly. Although there are some businesses that do that are very successful, that do major restoration work on cars, and so there are businesses out there that are doing it. So that's not a huge factor. Other factors include emotions from usually your childhood, and the nostalgia around a particular car or a particular period or era of cars that you're very interested in, that you'd like to get involved in, and carry out a restoration on. One, that helps choose the subject of your restoration, which car it is you want to do, or which model or brand, and it also is that driving force that will help gain those skills along the way. I think it's useful to think of car restoration, or the hobby of car restoration, as a journey. And you can control that journey, and you can decide how successful that journey is by making some choices, informed choices up front about how in-depth that you're going to get, which areas that you want to concentrate on in terms of your skills, building the skills up, and what kind of success you want to get out of it at the end. But it is a journey. It's an emotional journey. It's a journey where your skills will develop over time. You've got to understand that you've got to start from a base level. Nobody starts with skills that are fully developed and you can do everything. You've got to learn as you go along. The most common question I get asked, and I've had this hobby for like 3 decades. The most common question I get asked is, where did you learn any of this? How did you get started? Where do you go to learn these skills? So it's always been the question over that whole period of time, and there are different ways that you can learn the skills in order to do it. But you've got to think of it as a journey. You're starting with probably a low base of skills. You're going to build those up as you go along, and along that journey, you're going to meet friends that are going to help you. You're going to perhaps learn a lot about the history of the car, the history of the manufacturer, and you're going to get involved in, I'm sure, different kinds of events as well. So gatherings where people, similar, like-minded people will go, whether it be shows, whether it be parts events like sales, whether it be auctions. You will find out there is a community of people ready to support you, and they are great. They will help you, whether it be find parts or find where you can develop skills. They will help you along the way, and they will be your friends. There are a lot of online forums now as well, whether it be Facebook or Twitter or whatever. There's a lot of online forums where there's help as well. You also have to bear in mind that in some cases the answers that you might get to some of those questions are not really helpful. I had one recently. I'll give you an example where I was just asking for feedback on something related to the engine, and I got I got feedback from, very useful feedback in terms of actually looking at what I asked in the question, which was, could you look at this wear on this particular bearing? Give me some feedback. What do you think? How do you think that's happened? So I got some very useful feedback, and I got some that was not useful. That was like, now you should remove the entire engine from the car rework everything and basically spend about £10,000 and another 200 hours doing something that is completely unnecessary. So you can get some useful feedback, and you can get some that might throw you completely off course. And really trying to understand and filter through some of those and think about them sensibly. Some of the feedback or advice you might get will save you a lot of time, but it will also perhaps save you a lot of money in terms of what you do, and it might mean the difference to success or not success for you. So you have to go in with an objective sort of frame of mind when you interact in some of those areas of online forums. So let me move to those questions about where would you learn those skills, and we'll move on to how do you select and try and make the right choice for what restoration might suit you. So there's only so many online tutorials that you could do. You can watch a lot of things on YouTube or other social media platforms where people are doing this type of work, this type of restoration. But really, you need to get the confidence up of doing it hands on yourself, because you're going to be doing it. It's you that wants to develop those skills. So it's important that you get hands on as early as possible. You can do. It's likely that you'll have things like a local course that you could go on, a basic mechanics course, which would really help you if you haven't really ever done any kind of mechanic sort of experience before. So those are helpful just to get you over that confidence barrier, perhaps. And if you don't have that confidence barrier there, then you can just go hands-on straight away. I mean, you might expect, I would say, that things will break. Not everything goes 100% according to plan. Be prepared for something that might go wrong. Don't be disheartened if you break something and you have to redo something. That's just what happens. We all do it, basically, no matter how much experience you've got or not. So I wouldn't be worried about something like that. What I would say is move on from it quickly. Start to redo it. Try and understand what you think went wrong. Just modify, learn, move on. There are also a great number of skills that you can learn, and there's almost too many, and it can be overwhelming. So you might decide that you're more interested in doing, say, the mechanics work, and the body work you might be less interested in, and you might want to outsource that to somebody, which is absolutely fine. A lot of people do that. The same goes for the upholstery. A lot of people don't want to do stitching things from hand. That's another skill that they might not want to develop straight away. They might just be concentrating on the mechanical side and kind of engineering side of it. So they might outsource that as well. That's just perfectly normal. I mean, me myself, even though I've been doing it for like 3 decades, I quite often get upholstery work done. I'm going to say elsewhere. Somebody else does the stitching. Somebody else makes the covers. I will fit them to make sure that they're fitted the way I want them to be fitted, and it's a really neat job. But the actual stitching side of it, because often it's leather, you need special equipment. I've got trusted people that I would use to do that for me. But I undertake everything else. Whether it be bodywork, whether it be re-engineering things, whether it be manufacturing things, fabricating things, electrical work. That's another chunk that some people like to outsource. The entire electrical work. They might get somebody along to do that for them as well. So there's few bits and pieces that you can pick and choose from, depending on what skills you're interested in developing. In order to be successful, you should really start out with setting your expectations correctly and choosing the right project for you. The projects have a habit of scope creep. They have a habit of more and more jobs turning up as you move through the project. you buy a car, let's say, and the body looks good, and you're starting to, restore maybe the suspension and the engine and the interior. And then it turns out that the body's really rusty, and you're onto bodywork. And it needs a load of welding or something at that point, and it then becomes a nightmare for you because you don't know how to weld. You don't really want to learn welding, and you'd have to get somebody in to do it. It becomes overly expensive. It becomes a big blocker. You can't move the project forward. These things are challenges sent to test you as you will go through a restoration, and there will be challenges along the way. There's no shadow of a doubt. Anybody who does a restoration is sent challenges along the way. So expect those as you move through it. How you deal with those challenges, well, that's part of the challenge. That's part of the satisfaction in maybe learning something else or dealing with obstacles. So yeah, that will happen as you go through it. And I still get caught out in things that I think, oh, that might have been an easier project than I thought, and actually it was 3 or 4 times worse or longer than it takes. And this particular project that I'm sitting in at the moment, that's an excellent example of that. However, just moving, how can you make things easier for yourself? Well, choosing what type of project and how far and what extent of skills are needed to complete that type of project is a good starting place. And if we kind of categorize projects into different levels, there's a few different levels there. And there's a few different names going around the terminology that I'll cover just now. So let's talk about those. So let's talk about the different restoration types that you might choose from. Is this thing just going to keep squawking away in the middle of me doing my video? If I had a gun right now, I think I'd go and I'd probably take that out. Right. Let's go back to where I was. Right. Different restoration. This thing loves the word restoration. Every time I say restoration, it starts going mental. Right. It'll fly off shortly. Okay, let's talk about different restoration types. So, I'll start with the easiest and move towards the more difficult ones. So, easiest really is a rolling restoration, also called preservation sometimes. Typically, these are on cars that are roadworthy that need some amount of work to improve them to maybe, and it could be that maybe they've been modified with the wrong wheels or wrong seats, or they have a little bit of bodywork that needs done, or the engine's not running well, or something like that, that you can handle smaller jobs effectively while the car's still running on the road. Or you can do something in your driveway over a weekend, and that is, the car's running by Monday again. If you take it off on Friday and you carry out the job, you've got the car back in a running condition. And those are really good. Those are a great way to start. The jobs tend to be not so big, so they're more manageable. The skill level required is easier to attain, and you can still enjoy the car as you're doing it as you go along. So you've not got this big wait or this big long period of time, which in some cases can be years for seriously big restorations. You've not got that massive time and investment before you can enjoy the car. So you can enjoy it as you go along. And rolling restoration is really, I would say, great for beginners and novices. Just for those reasons mentioned, you get all the benefits of using the car and manageable jobs, and it's a great way to start getting involved. So I'd say that's probably your starting position. More when you move to what you would then term a proper restoration. Proper restoration involves the car coming off the road completely to be garaged. Usually, can be done in driveways. This is an example. I don't know if I could say it's a good example or a bad example of my decision making, but it's an example of doing one in a driveway. Although it's a bit of an extreme example, I've got to say, so don't follow my example. But if you're doing a full restoration, typically you're talking about all the aspects of the car. You're usually talking about bodywork, engine, mechanical, suspension, interior, the chassis, electrical. You're talking about everything needing done. And when you start talking about everything needing done, you're talking about quite a large commitment in terms of time and spend. And that's where it can be disheartening for people if they don't see or are not able to make progress as expected. And restorations can stretch out, if you like, in terms of the time scale, and be more difficult to achieve. Certainly a lot more challenging, and you really have to have a determination that is rock solid in terms of your commitment to doing it. But of course, for some people, the bigger the challenge, the bigger the reward at the end. So, it has its own rewards as you go along and you can see progress being made, but it has its own challenges. So that's just a restoration. And typically when you're doing that restoration, you're typically restoring the car back to how it came from the manufacturer. You're not really making modifications to it. You can typically buy parts which will then fit the car and are designed for the car, etc. You usually bolt on, bolt off type of stuff. And the fabrication work is often in bodywork, things like panels, repairs to chassis, things like that. But it can also be interior, fabricating new seat panels and the seat covers, that sort of thing. So moving on to what I would say probably is the next stage, which is a resto mod. So that was just a plain restoration. A resto mod is effectively a restoration, but you're going to modify the car at the same time, and that modification tends to be more of an in-period type of restoration, things that were available to modify the car when the car was new or a few years old, for instance. So in the 1970s, that would probably be fitting twin carburetors, maybe an electronic ignition. You might make some changes to the suspension that were in-period type of changes. Bodywork, you might get hold of some kind of change of bodywork that was available in period. So that's kind of a resto mod. You might have heard the term as well, retro mod. So a retro mod is where you're modifying, so you're perhaps carrying out a restoration, but you're modifying, and it doesn't always have to be actually you're carrying out a restoration. You could take a classic car, for instance, and just start retro modding it. It might not need much restoration work. It might be a great example, but you might want to start retro modding it. So retro modding is where you want to modernize the car in some way, in some aspect. It's usually quite well. Actually, these days they talk about retro mods, really expensive retro mods. Like they're basically a low volume manufacturer taking the body shell of whatever that car is that they're retro modding and completely retrofitting it with completely different mechanicals and interior and everything. They're rebuilding a new car. Those are extreme examples of retro modding. Less extreme examples of retro modding would be that, let's say you're going to fit a more modern gearbox to your car. That is retro modding. Quite typically, you could find people that might convert their car from automatic to manual using a newer type manual gearbox. That's a retro mod. They might completely replace the engine for a much newer engine. So it might be, say, it's got an 8-valve engine in it or something like that. That's 2 litre, and they want to put in a V6 that's 3 litre or 5 litre or whatever it is. That's a more modern engine. That's retro modding. So retro modding, as you can tell, as I'm talking about some of the changes they might make, includes a lot of re-engineering of the car, and that starts to sit towards the top of the skills that you would require to do it. So you really need engineering type skills if you're going to undertake that stuff yourself. You need to learn those or get advice on how to do it, or copy somebody who's done it already if they're willing to, give you the information, etc., on how they did it. So there are also out there companies that supply things like engines and wiring looms to allow you to retro mod. So there are companies that are making it easier for you to achieve those results. In particular, I'm thinking of things like Ecotech and Z-Tech engines and stuff like that for Fords, going into Ford Escorts. Much more modern engine. They'll sell you the engine. They'll even tune the engine for you if you want and supply it in a crate with a wiring loom ready to plug in. They could actually sell you the bell housing or the adapter plates to put it onto different gearboxes. So there's for some vehicles out there, there's some great possibilities of available products to retro mod it. And your engineering skills don't need to be that significant. But for the more obscure stuff, like this, you won't find those solutions out there, and you need to learn those or have those skills yourself in order to be able to achieve different types of results like that. So if I talk again just through those the different levels. So I think the lowest level, the easiest maybe to achieve, is a rolling restoration, where you're using the car and you can start learning the skills to do some of the work on the car to restore it, and you can enjoy it as you go along. Great solution for beginners or novices. Then more towards full restoration, where the work is there's much more work, it's much more onerous, it's much more of an investment in time and money. So that is full restoration. Quite often that is back to the original manufacturer specification. Then Resto mod, where it's like a restoration, but you're perhaps modifying the vehicle, so you need to learn about those modifications and the additional engineering things that you might need for those. So it's again another step up. And then right at the top, retro modding, where you're really changing some of the engineering on the car, retrofitting it with a number of things, and that gets very in depth in terms of the amount of skills and learning that you might want to have, or support that you might want to get along the way. So I think that gives a kind of a good idea of what to do. My recommendation for most people would be to try a rolling restoration first as a starting position. But people's connection to wanting to do a restoration isn't logical. It is emotion driven. So, you might have your heart particularly set on a particular model for emotional reasons, and nothing else will do. And that's perfectly acceptable. But go into the project with a plan about what you're going to have to cover. Make a plan, understand what skills you're going to need, and decide which ones you're going to learn and which are those that you're going to perhaps outsource. Budget for it. Make sure that maybe almost create another bank account and sort of pay some money into that, so you can pay it in stages, so it doesn't come as a shock, some particular bills, because some stuff might be more expensive. So having some financial approach to it definitely helps. And if you're having to justify this to your partner, then that definitely helps as well, about how to achieve it. And keep in mind the end goal, whether that's put pictures up of what you want the end result to look like, or create a plan about how you're going to use the car. That's also really good to help give you motivation, because there'll be times that you think, oh, why am I doing this? I should just give up. And giving up is for probably the vast majority of people trying it, a lot of people do give up because it's overwhelming. So that's why, in this video, I'm just trying to give you some idea about what to expect along the way, and prepare yourself for it. You will have to buy a lot of tools, for instance. You'll need somebody to work on the car, and you'll need to spend time, learning some of those skills. And speaking to a lot of people. You join clubs as well. That is also really helps connect you to the people who can help you. And that's how to start really getting into restoration. It is, for me, it's personally very rewarding. For me, I've always had that hobby. I've always had that interest. My skills are still developing as I go along. My most recent development of skills is fabrication in fiberglass. I made these wheel arches for this car because there was no other option. This or the other options were uneconomical and unrealistic to be able to expect to find new metalwork for this car, or even half decent secondhand stuff. And the amount of work required to do it just completely outweighed doing this. But when I introduce this car, I will explain that this car deserves to have these types of wheel arches fitted, because it's very special and it's quite a unique car. It's not a car that should ever have been returned back to a standard condition or a standard state, because it is not a standard car, and that's not its history. So in some cases, you'll find that the car that you buy might talk to you. It might dictate, in some respects, what that restoration should look like. And it might set you on a slightly different path. So, maybe look out for that as well. But keeping in mind, while you're doing your restoration, what the end goal is and how you're going to use that car is an extremely useful way to keep motivated in sometimes what can be quite difficult circumstances. So look, I hope you found that useful. Please like and subscribe. Please ask questions in the comments. I'm very happy to support. And I really hope that if you're thinking about doing a restoration, that this helps you plan for it, that you enjoy it as much as I've managed to enjoy it over all these number of years. It really is a fantastic hobby. You meet some great people along the way, and you're part of a great community. So I can only recommend it. And of course, I'm a little bit biased. However, it's a great hobby to have. So good luck. Let me know how you get on, and I'll see you in part 2 for this, where I explain what I'm doing with this project, what the project is. I'll introduce you to the car as well, because for most people, they'll have no idea what this is.